Okay, so we've revisited social media in terms of how they're effective tools to assist us in sharing our media, which brings us to the concept of shareable media. So before we explore what shareable media is or are, I think it's important to reflect on convergence culture and some of the debates that are emerging around it or have emerged around that. So convergence culture has provided us with an extremely useful lens to try and understand the current media trends and participation of the late 20th and early 21st centuries. So during the past several years, I have observed three ways that we can approach the uprising of grassroots media and its impact on the broader cultural and societal debates. These include number one, an increase in the technological tools that enable us to participate. Devices have become smaller, cheaper, easier to operate, and are more readily available for those not formally considered to be producers to have access and privilege to make and produce content that is highly relevant to their lives and to offer their representation of their lived in world. Not only are users able to produce media, but the ever increasing access to networked computing, i.e., the internet, across high speed broadband and across mobile internet, users now have the ability to publish their content across a host of platforms for ever increasing hungry media audiences. So, the rise of social media has also aided the distribution of these media platforms, further enabling the audience to talk back to their producers. So, number two, increased political activity that has been enabled through users engaging in online participatory platforms that give some sense of inclusion into one's own lives within the larger picture. Users have in recent years been given the opportunity to have their voice included in the political processes of media production. Say, for example, having your say or letting us know what you reckon, and indeed even in the hard political processes of our times through open forums, expressions of interest, and in national political call-outs, which are often all framed under the Gov 2.0 umbrella. Number three, increased economic effect of participation has been presented by many as how peer production and the use of the collective intelligence can simplify the production of knowledge and assist in its sharing for a more productive and efficient society. Champions such as Leadbeater, Bankler, Lessig, and Shirky have all shared their insights on how peer-to-peer production and the legal frameworks that surround them can better our society if institutions simply let go. They've even proved how our current laws and regulatory frameworks are insufficient for our immediate culture and societal activities. However, now we're at a boiling point with convergence culture, and it's not enough to merely marvel at the wonders of participation and its ensuing convergence culture. We're at a crisis point in understanding the realistic impacts of convergence, and we might ask, is increased participation really affecting the media that's being produced? Are media organisations embracing and indeed incorporating the voice of the audience? Are political agendas being swayed by grassroots opinions of those that they affect? And most importantly, are the institutions that we need to challenge, where convergence culture provides an opportunity to do so, really letting go of their neoliberalist methods in operation, and introducing a user perspective? Indeed, do they really need to? So this brings us rather succinctly to the current ideas of convergence culture. If cultural studies is trying to understand society, politics, and economics inclusively, is it fair to say that convergence culture is a representation of an era or epoch of that trajectory? Why then did convergence culture become a rhetoric of much communication work? And is it indeed a cliche to now even talk about convergence culture? So if we break down convergence culture into its four main categories, it becomes useful to approach the theory in a contemporary era. Convergence as an alignment between media industries and companies is both good and bad. On the one hand, as Branson and others from 2008 suggest, it may cause a decline in the diversity of material offered and result in a tendency that voices of those lacking economic power will not be taken into account. On the other hand, Grant in 2009 argues that market driven media, owned and controlled by big media corporations, can actually improve the value of the service, the flexibility of topics, and the competence of the contributors, as well as enable technological developments, change the elitism of media professionals, and create new general awareness. The concern for lack of diversity has been debunked, given the rise of the highly personalised media environment of recent years. The benefits of the improved value within entertainment, I think, have been exponential, and we'll return to this near the end of this lecture. The multiplication of platforms for news and media demonstrates how the audience not only reads the news, but now takes an active role in producing that news. Here we might lean on the example of the Arab Spring, arguably one of the most participatory global events in history with an unprecedented level of activity. The Arab Spring demonstrates unprecedented participation by those involved in the uprisings. Although, as further research emerged, it became clear that the majority of interaction was coming from areas not directly involved. So, for example, Egypt was receiving a lot of the tweets, or a lot of the tweets that were mentioning Egypt were coming from those who were sympathetic to the cause, who were actually based in North America. Nonetheless, the platforms have certainly increased and provided opportunities that we still do not fully understand. Technological hybridity is probably the most obvious effect of convergence. With a smartphone in our pocket, we now have the ability to capture, produce, edit, and publish through potentially large networks, media that is highly relevant, niche, and interesting. The cost of technology has declined, our skills have increased, and we are connected in ways that we've never experienced before. A typical television viewing is never experienced alone anymore, so it is within a lounge room of thousands of strangers who are intimately conversing with each other. Recently, Henry Jenkins, Sam Ford, and Joshua Green wrote a book titled Shareable Media. It's a great read. It tackles some of the critique of convergence and locates current practice and trends within the debate. They quote, "Spreadable media examines the hybrid model of circulation, where a mix of top-down and bottom-up forces determine how material is shared across and among cultures in far more participatory and messier ways. This is fascinating as it begins to illuminate the hybridity of how these media systems operate. So it's not either top-down or bottom-up. It's a combination of the two that makes media truly interesting, particular, and relevant. This, I argue, is the most important role in the media industries today. The intermediary person, which many of you will feel as you embark on your media careers. To demonstrate the hybrid media model, that is, independent producers working within an organisational framework, I've copied in a link below to a story, A Strange Sport's Saddest Season, on the Narratively platform. Perhaps many of you have used or heard of this platform. As you go through this example, again, think about how it has been compiled and how an audience member might be inspired to share the media across their networks. Also, start to think about how the technology and the tools enable us as media producers to create new storytelling techniques and incorporate the audience into that process.